All right. Hello, podcast listeners. This is podcast six or week six for the US Civics Project. My name is Darren McCarrick, and let's get on with this week. First, first article we have from CNN. Uh, this one mostly talks about Trump, like what's up with Trump. And this week, Trump has done a lot of stuff that I can't really find an exact article to like deliver all of it, but this is the one I want to go through. So the article goes through, kind of goes something through all of them. For one, the ceasefire in Israel and Gaza did not go through like I predicted. Israel was already killing people at the ceasefire deal, and when Hamas actually reacted, they blamed Hamas, just like I predicted, literally. And the actual article talks about how Trump responded to the No Kings protest. The No Kings protest was a national-wide protest against Trump. It happened, I think, a couple months ago from today. Another one happened against him, and then this one that happened actually elicited more of a response from Trump. What Trump responded was he made an AI video of him flying a jet over protesting cities and him dumping massive amounts of poo all over them. I don't know if any other president did this, how would you even react? Like, what would you even say? Like, what? Very immature of the president for doing that. This was a tactic used by the Republican Party to trivialize the protesters and as well as make fun of them and complain about people being soft if they responded critically to the video. This has happened because of it. When people respond to the video, you can see a lot of Republicans saying that it's just a joke. But it's not a joke when it comes from the literal president. It has much more context and implications behind it. This in turn allows Trump to disregard the whole protest and protesters and still not directly respond to the claims made about the No Kings protest. The No Kings protest talks about a lot of things that Trump does. And then actually in Unk News or in old people news, like people who are in their 30s and 40s, what's it called? It talks about more into that. So let's talk about Gen Z in the news. Nuclear power. This is actually one of the things I support more on the Republican side of things, because Republicans have been now pushing more for this. So nuclear power is a very efficient way to produce a large amount of power, both safe and that has no carbon emissions. Nuclear power has so much false information about it, or that many false implications that make it seem that nuclear power is deadly. Okay, there's already some things, right? Nuclear power can be deadly if it's a sort of meltdown. But however, this in case does not really happen anymore because of technology that we have today. We have one AI to help with that, and as well new types of research that help this never happen at all, right? As well, people think that nuclear waste is like green goop. I don't know. That's ridiculous. The actual leftovers is just rods that are stored in water, and then after being stored in water and cooled down, it's just stored in a barrel where it's closed off and usually underground, right? The article shows that many are in support of nuclear power. It shows that both Republicans and Democrats support it. Nuclear power and other carbon-free emission type of power. However, for fracking, oil, and coal, Republicans support these type of power generators that Democrats do not support. This connects to how Republicans are generally more invested in these type of companies. Invested meaning more like money-wise, as in stock or being working there, right? Many see these types of power like American, right? So if you go to the article, you see a majority of Americans continue to support more nuclear power in the U.S., right? You see the dip in 2020, maybe because of just all the things that happened there. They had the Beirut explosion, which is not a nuclear explosion, but it seems to have more implications just because of that. And you see a general rise in this. Look, 56% or 59% of U.S. adults who favor more nuclear power plants to generate electricity in the country. And then you see for solar farms and wind turbines, carbon net zero emission type power generators, you see that Democrats have overwhelmingly support it for 91 to 87%, and then about 50% of Republicans support it. And then for solar power panel farms, you see just 61. And in nuclear power, you see Republicans actually support more of that, which is that actually surprised me. And Republicans support more nuclear power rather than Democrats. I mean, it's still 52% and 69%, which is only 17% difference, but it's still, so crazy to think about. And then you have fracking, offshore oil and gas drilling, and coal mining, which you see a predominantly Republican majority vote of this. Moreover, over 2/3 of them support it, which is not really good. Like coal mining, if you were to do the math, coal mining produces more nuclear emissions, about 5% of your daily nuclear emissions than natural nuclear power. What I'm also I won't say daily emissions. Moreover, they produce more nuclear radiation than little nuclear power, like the waste that comes from it or from producing it. Just something to think about, right? And it goes into the favors and opposing. You see most who oppose it see it as a net safety concern, right? They see it as weapon if it has a meltdown. I think that's the biggest turnoff for a lot of people supporting nuclear power is that meltdown. And meltdown certainly it did happen. Those do happen, right? And when those happen, those have long, very, very, very long term effects, long enough for multiple generations to be affected by it. So it's not just something to scoff over, but that there's also some evidence. Here's some evidence now that nuclear power plants are a lot more safer than it was, especially in Ukraine, right? For when that happened, it was mostly because the USSR when it was funding it and building it, did not have the right safety precautions. And if you see the Chernobyl movie, it goes over the Chernobyl show. It goes over that too. That show is also great. Everybody should watch that show. That show is absolutely amazing. Now, Unk News. This article comes from The Guardian. The article has many implications to this, like as many other articles. Some things to note that the National Guard was already in Oregon for a while now, around 3 weeks, patrolling and fighting against the protesting in Portland. The federal appeal court now allows the National Guard to be fully in Oregon as well, to be deployed there by the Oregon National Guard. Oregon attorney generals and Portland-based appeals court judges have made remarks saying how America is on a dangerous path because of it. This is more of a short read, but not as a short read. But it goes into No Kings protest, but as well as the protest that was already happening in Oregon for now. And I went over this in my last podcast. I talked about how this is a ploy for Donald Trump to exert more of his power, right? Since now he has the power to send a National Guard to cities, right? And for these cities, they're not like rioting, they're protesting, right? So in fact, I believe, I'm gonna predict this, right? In one of the No Kings protests, he's gonna send a National Guard, right? This goes on to my things that I want to talk about, but I'm predicting now, like a conspiracy theory, or not prediction, but many times in protests, there are people who are sent there by the government to start rioting, right? Because if you have these people who are in plain clothing, very suspicious, in plain white clothing, who go up and usually throw bricks, or like usually for some reason there's bricks placed there before the protest. Like I think it definitely could be false, right? But it's something to be like, like that's something to think about, right? Like why were bricks placed there beforehand? Just something to think about. Now, what I want to talk about, I wrote more about this one. So, the psychology of conspiracy theories and circular thinking thought path trap that many fall in. So last week, my teacher, Mr. Taylor, responded to my conspiracy theories. I was a conspiracy theorist, right? And then let's just go over what it says, right? Or what the article says. The paper people drawn to conspiracy theories share a cluster of psychology features by Melinda Winner Moyer considers why individuals are believers in conspiracy theories and why certain emotions and thought patterns influence them in this matter. It begins with the dilemma of cognitive scientist Stefan Lewandowski, who discovered that those who deny climate change often believe in other conspiracy theories, such as the moon landing was staged. His studies demonstrate that these are prevalent beliefs. More than a quarter of Americans believe believe many events in the world occur due to secret agendas, but which can be toxic, as well as evidence from real life attacks like 28th Pittsburgh synagogue shooting and the Pizzagate attack. That Pizzagate attack was okay. It's okay. I don't want to say anything about it, but it didn't. It was very suspicious how that went through. Anyways, psychologists have identified that anxiety, powerlessness, and social isolation increases the likelihood that people will develop a conspiratorial mindset. Since conspiracy theories, or conspiracy theories are confronting in a such way as they render disorder explainable and place blame on groups of people. In times of uncertainty, such as during the political controversies or social issues, these emotions become stronger so that individuals from both political extremes accept the false narratives. The article then discusses how conspiratorial thought patterns can entrap individuals in a vicious cycle of mistrust and inaction. Believing in conspiracy theories can leave people feeling powerless and isolated, reduce communities' participation, and even jeopardize public health, such as the anti-vaccine groups. And this one affected, I believe, in Pennsylvania, where people were the measles disease or the virus had a spike after 2020. I mean, I think there's many things I'll talk about. Okay, I'll talk about it after. Exhorting people to verify whether sources are reputable concerning evidence and observe contradictions with claims assist them distinguishing fact from fiction. False conspiracy tales frequently employ contradictory reasoning, concepts, and a pattern of interpreting contradictory evidence as validation of theory itself. Ultimately, Moyer summarizes that conspiracy theories derive from natural human desire to grasp uncertainty. Yet, learning to question and critically and challenge info is highly relevant into insulating both people and society from baleful influence. So this is my kind of response to it, right? I do believe that conspiracy theories can often fall into that type of thought pattern, right? The thought pattern kind of discussed here is that if you already have a presupposition to let's say a government, that you distrust your government already, right? And then you see conspiracy theories about it, right? Maybe saying that the government is run by aliens, right? And that's why all the bad things are happening, right? Maybe you don't believe that implicitly, right? However, you do believe you already have distrust of the government, right? And this is saying, this kind of supports it. I should kind of supports it, right? That I already distrust the government, and the government is probably ran by aliens or lizard people. Like, I probably should consider it. However, I think it also is kind of hateful in its rhetoric when it talks about how these people are usually isolated or just not really inept with society. I don't think I am personally. Maybe that's just that reason doesn't really. This is really actually really good reason that of course I'm the one off. That's not really good reasoning. However, a majority of people who believe in conspiracy theories, I don't believe are just isolated. It says that it causes isolation, but necessarily that all these people are isolated, I don't really think so. And I think too, going back onto what I said, is that when things contradict each other, when evidence contradicts each other from multiple sources, I think it is evidence of something going on. Maybe it's just that people are getting the wrong type of information, right? But I think conspiracy theorists really pointed out because it is something to think about, right? And going on with the anti-vaccine group, right? So the anti-vaccine group, one of the most important rhetorics for that group was that they don't trust the government, right? Like saying saying that the government who mandated these is something like, if you do this, you follow the government, right? Or that you are just the government's like dog, let's say, just because of it, right? The thing is like I support it with the article when it's saying that it's harmful when you actually do think about it, right? Because it's not just the government doing it. You have to think about it as the actual thing, like, it's actual vaccines, right? These vaccines are actually good for you because they are a less harmful version of a virus that allows your body to fight it, right? But I think there's differences in conspiracy theories. I think certain issues are labeled as conspiracy theories when they are just theories, right? it's not that there's not solid evidence. There's solid evidences for some of these things, right? For example, I think Pizzagate definitely has some solid evidence against, not against it, supporting it, right? And that's one I believe in, right? I think also the moon landing. The moon landing was definitely real. I think it certainly would be. It would certainly be more expensive to fake everything that happened in moon landing. I think a much more easier thing to do than that is literally just to land on the moon, right? But the circular reasoning that this article discusses, I think, is something to think about when you're in these conspiracy theorist type groups. Is that you have to think about it from an outside perspective, where you have to see like, okay, am I diving too deep into it? Diving too deep, meaning that if I presupposing this is true just because it goes with my worldview, or is an actual piece of evidence, right? Like for example, for Pizzagate, there's actual evidence of it, right? For example, when the gunman who quote unquote with the Pizzagate attack, right? The Pizzagate attack from one of the eyewitnesses said that there was no shots fired, right? The shots, and that the person was carrying a shotgun, right? And that the shotgun, he was actually he shot at a door which thought was to the basement, right? Turns out it was just for a server room. Weirdly enough, you had to question that, like, okay, so it's fine. It didn't really happen, right? And that the Pizzagate attack, it's just a crazy person who tried to shoot out, right? But the thing is, the implication with this, right? There's some implications because of this, is that when that person shot that server room was hosting the Comet Pizza's website, and that Comet Pizza website was hosting CP, right? It's like, I think this article almost falsifies that all conspiracy theories are crazy. Not crazy, but in fact are just lonely people who just fall into a line of reasoning, right? But I think that these are reasonable people who are coming to some evidences to come to a conclusion simply by that, and label them a conspiracy theorist disregards the information that they might have taken, right? But anyways, that's basically what I was trying to wrap it up. But I think my main point is that I think this article does point out some good things that conspiracy theorists should go through when they're in their reasoning, right? But I also think it summarizes too much that all conspiracy theories are false because of it. I think it disregards people who actually research about it and be like, huh, you know what I mean? Of course, you have to think about presupposition as well as a thinking trap, but I think it disregards it more or less. But anyways, that's it for today's podcast. This podcast didn't really go that much into Israel and Gaza. I mean, I already talked about the ceasefire not going through. I was going to talk about it. Okay, I'll talk about it now. Like, Israel was already attacking after the ceasefire happened. Specifically, they had militia groups go into Gaza and fighting there, right? And then, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. When you search up Israel on TikTok, right, you see this false information flag come up when you're doing that, right? But when you search up Hamas, you don't get the same flag, right? And that a video was circulating on TikTok too. The video circulating was about Hamas killing, quote unquote, people who were allegedly tied to Israel and who were giving Israel information, right? That video was circulating all over TikTok. But the thing is, like, doesn't it have policies against it? And it doesn't show any false flag things about it either. It just comes right after TikTok was bought by Oracle, and Oracle CEO is the biggest donator to the IDF. Like, you know, what can you really do? That's not even conspiracy theory. That's just based off just the money line, right? But anyways, that's it. I'll wrap it up for this podcast. And I think my last message is you should be a conspiracy theorist, because conspiracy theory is pretty cool when you go into it, and also pretty scary. That's all I'll say. Okay, that's it.